Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. Captured Venezuelan leader Maduro taken to New York detention center after US strikes. Trump says US will run Venezuela, vows strong involvement in energy sector. World leaders largely expressed concern over US action. Some praised strikes on Venezuela capturing Maduro. India issues advisory to its citizens to avoid all non-essential travel to the country. Britain and France jointly carry out strikes against ISIS targets in Syria. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to virtually inaugurate 72nd National Volleyball Tournament today. Over 1,000 players from across the country participating. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was captured by US forces on Saturday, arrived at the Stewart Air National Guard base in New York. Maduro, who was indicted on various US charges, including narco-terrorism conspiracy, is expected to make an initial appearance in Manhattan Federal Court on Monday. Earlier on Saturday, the US launched a wide-scale air, land and sea military attack on Venezuela involving at least 150 aircraft. Maduro and his wife were captured and flown out of the country. And now up on your screen is the visual of a helicopter carrying Venezuelan leader Maduro to a detention center in New York City following his capture by the United States. Those are visuals of deposed Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro being moved in New York. Maduro is transported by helicopter to the New York detention center. On Monday, he is likely to be produced in Manhattan court. He is going to be tried for charges related to narco-terrorism, and these visuals of the helicopter carrying Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro to the detention center in New York. And US President Donald Trump watched live as the American forces carried out the military operation that led to the capture of Venezuelan leader Maduro. Later at a news conference in Mar-a-Lago, Trump promised to put Venezuela under American control for now, including by deploying US forces if necessary.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela.
And Donald Trump also said the US will look to tap Venezuela's massive oil reserves, recruiting American companies to overhaul the gutted industry and use US troops for security.
We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
Let's talk about Nicolas Maduro. From bus driver to president, Nicolas Maduro's journey reflects the complexities of Venezuela's modern history. A close ally of Hugo Chavez, he rose through the union activism, foreign diplomacy before assuming the nation's highest office. His tenure has faced economic challenges, mass migration, criticism from human rights groups. Following the recent US strike on Caracas, Maduro's capture has drawn global attention, raising concerns over regional stability and energy markets. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay gets us more. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro rose from humble beginnings in Caracas to the center of geopolitical storm. His journey reflects both loyalty to Hugo Chávez's socialist vision and the turbulence of Venezuela's modern history. Maduro was born in 1962 in a working-class leftist family in Caracas. Influenced by his father, a trade union leader, he entered labor activism early. In the 1980s, he worked as a bus driver while organizing transport unions. His political training in Cuba and support for Hugo Chávez's failed 1992 coup cemented his role in the Bolivarian movement. By 1999, Maduro was elected to the National Constituent Assembly, where he contributed in drafting Venezuela's new constitution. He later secured a seat in the National Assembly, rising to Speaker in 2005. From 2006 to 2013, he served as Foreign Minister, strengthening ties with Russia, China and Iran. In December 2012, Chávez, battling cancer, publicly endorsed Maduro as his successor. Following Chávez's death in March 2013, Maduro was sworn in as interim president. He narrowly won the April election against Enrique Capriles, sparking demands for a recount. His presidency has since been marked by economic collapse, hyperinflation, food and medicine shortages, and mass migration. While critics blame corruption and mismanagement, Maduro insists US sanctions and economic warfare are responsible. Maduro secured re-election in 2018 amid allegations of fraud and in 2024 claimed victory in another disputed vote. Beginning a third term in January 2025, human rights groups accuse his government of repression, including arbitrary detentions and violations of civil liberties. The US-Venezuela conflict escalated sharply in 2025. Washington seized Venezuelan government assets, struck boats accused of narcotics trafficking, and designated Maduro's circle as a terrorist organization. Maduro responded with warnings of declaring a state of emergency and claims of advanced Russian-made air defenses. On January 3, 2026, US President Donald Trump announced a dramatic military strike on Caracas. According to Washington, Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were captured and flown out of Venezuela. The move has triggered global shockwaves, with regional leaders warning of destabilization in Latin America and OPEC raising concerns about oil market volatility. Maduro's rule has seen Venezuela's oil output plummet, once the backbone of its economy. However, Maduro maintained military loyalty and alliances with Russia, Iran and Cuba until the latest US strike shifted the balance. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India. And to talk more on the Venezuela crisis, joining me is DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre from New Delhi. Also joining us this morning is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former senior diplomat. Good morning and welcome. Ambassador Sajjanhar, let me come to you first, sir. What is your reading of the dramatic US military action in Venezuela? The response of the international community so far has been oscillating between outrage, applause and silence.
Yes, thank you very much, Shubhendu. My first comment, of course, on this very unprecedented action that has been taken by the United States, by its forces. It is very bold, it's a very audacious move. The pressure on Venezuela had been increasing for quite some time, for the last several months, ever since President Trump came to office. But that it will turn out this way, I don't think anyone, not even in Venezuela, would have anticipated that there would be a swoop and the president and his wife, they would be abducted from there, they would be kidnapped and brought to the United States. Everyone had really been talking about whether there would be any ground operations, whether there would be any boots on the ground, and what are the risks that would entail. But the manner in which this operation has been the precise way, the surgical manner in which this operation has been accomplished, I think that has definitely come as a huge surprise to everyone who has been watching the developments in Venezuela. Now, as far as the international response is concerned, I think by and large, Shubhendu, it is on predictable lines. Russia and China and Iran and Cuba, they were expected, Colombia, Brazil, they were expected to come out very strongly against this action, saying that, this is a violation of the UN Charter, violation of principles, UN principles, violation of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the country. It sets a very dangerous precedent for other countries that those which are mighty, those which are powerful, they can go in with impunity into weaker countries and, something similar what the West, what the United States and Europe has been saying about Russia in terms of its aggression against Ukraine. This is exactly similar to what has been done here. As far as Europe is concerned, of course, they are still trying to find balance, trying to walk a very thin dividing line between support for the United States and also expressing concern.
Right. Akshay, let me come to you for a quick update. The Venezuela situation has been evolving very rapidly. We just showed visuals of the deposed leader, Nicolas Maduro, being carried in a helicopter to the detention center in New York. If you could just take us through what happens next to him and what is happening in Venezuela meanwhile.
Well, the vice president has been sworn in as the president, and obviously there is going to be a pushback as far as this action is concerned. If you look at the legality of this entire incident, it's absolutely clearly a violation of the UN Charter, as we can say. The way US has carried on this operation has sort of set a very dangerous precedent. Now what happens in Ukraine, what happens in Taiwan, what happens elsewhere around the world will be given an example of the same kind of an action, and the silence that Europe has maintained is going to be a big task for them to defend in the upcoming months or probably years when similar kind of actions are taken by other major powers that are there, especially Russia in relation to Ukraine. So that perhaps also the reason why the European countries are trying to somewhat find a balance, or rather express concern, but now Russia can always come and say that hey, US did this, and there was a pin drop silence about that, so why can't we take a similar kind of action if we can do it? The action that has been taken by the US clearly says that might is right. If we had the power to go in, pick a president up, bring him to our country, and now we will try him according to our laws. Plus, the kind of reactions that are coming in from the US president, where he's overtly, talking about US and US companies tapping into Venezuela's oil reserves, the sort of oil reserve that it has, clearly, goes on to show that some countries, perhaps, like North Korea, would be quite happy that they had a stockpile of nuclear weapons, and that perhaps is the reason why nobody could depose their leader. So it is in terms of nuclear proliferation as well. This is going to be quite dangerous for the rest of the world.
Akshay, stay with us. Ambassador Sajanhar, everyone was waiting to hear what Donald Trump had to say in the last evening India time address, and the line that stood out, that when he says that US will run Venezuela, and he elaborates in saying that United States would have large American oil companies go into Venezuela. The narrative, sir, has shifted very quickly from narcotics to oil.
No, absolutely. I think that is what many of the international commentators and analysts had been saying, that it was less to do with democracy, less to do with narco-terrorism, less to do with Maduro, and basically eyes were on the energy assets, on the fossil fuel reserves of Venezuela. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, but in terms of the exploitation, it is very minimal. It contributes only about 0.8% to the global energy production, oil production. So the United States has its eyes on that, and of course there are no holds barred on the United States going in for exploitation of fossil fuels. Earlier it was, that we are going to phase out in a calibrated manner the oil and other fossil fuels, coal, etc., and go into renewables. But that has been completely dumped by Mr. Trump. So he is going to go all out as far as the exploitation of oil resources are concerned. So this is, everyone will be pointing fingers that it is for profit that Mr. Trump has gone there. And this was just a facade. This was just a whitewash that it was mentioned. And even Mr. Maduro had always mentioned that this has nothing to do with narco-terrorism, because there are other countries which are much bigger perpetrators of narco-terrorism, where drug cartels are there, whether it is Colombia and some of the other South American countries. But he's coming after Venezuela basically because of petroleum and the fact that Venezuela has threatened for quite some time that they are going to move away from trading in oil in dollars and go into national currencies and RMB, yuan, etc., because China is a big importer. So this was seen as a threat to the dollar, which has reigned supreme for the last, more than 50, 60 years. So I think there are very many economic considerations that have been at the back of all this, and the manner, the impunity with which all of this is being done. I think this has sent shockwaves, particularly as far as smaller countries are concerned, developing countries are concerned, and those in Latin America. Countries like Cuba, of course, countries far away like Iran, also there have been threats, but particularly countries like Cuba and others in the vicinity, because under the national security strategy that was issued by the United States on the 4th of December, it has been very categorically mentioned that the Monroe Doctrine will prevail, will apply with the Trump corollary, which means that no outside strong powers like Russia and China will be allowed to come and have any sort of predominant influence in any of the countries.
Right. Ambassador Sajjana, I request you to stay with us while we look at some more news and updates coming in on this story. Lawmakers in the United States on both sides of the aisle reacted to the strikes on Venezuela and the capturing of its leader, Nicolas Maduro. Democratic members of the U.S. Congress said on Saturday that senior officials of President Trump's administration had misled them during recent briefings about plans for Venezuela by insisting that they were not planning regime change in Caracas. While Republican members of the United States House expressed strong support for U.S. President Donald Trump's actions. Meanwhile, India has urged its nationals to avoid all non-essential travel to Venezuela after U.S. troops captured the South American country's President Nicolas Maduro and took them to the United States following a military assault on Caracas. As per the advisory, all Indians currently in Venezuela were advised to exercise extreme caution, restrict their movements and remain in contact with the Indian embassy in Caracas through the email ID and the emergency phone number that you can read on the screen, also on the MEA website and Twitter as shown on your screens. The world reacted to U.S. strikes on Venezuela capturing Maduro on Saturday. French President Emmanuel Macron praised the U.S. removal of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and said that transition must be peaceful, democratic and respectful of the will of its people. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz called for legal assessment of the U.S. strikes, calling it complex. And United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has voiced his concern over the escalation between the United States and Venezuela, culminating in the capture of the country's president, Nicolas Maduro, saying the developments constitute a dangerous precedent. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu praised Trump for capturing Venezuela's President Maduro, saluting his decisive resolve and the brilliant action of brave soldiers. While China criticized the interference of US in Venezuela crisis, according to Chinese Foreign Ministry statement, China is deeply shocked and strongly condemns the use of force by the United States against a sovereign country and the use of force against president of a country. Russia also condemned US strikes against Venezuela and called for peace and resolution through dialogue. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has refused to be drawn on whether or not US President Trump's military action against Venezuela may have broken international law.
I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
And a conversation on the Venezuela crisis continues. DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre and Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar continue to be with us. Akshay, Nicolas Maduro is set to face trial in a New York court. If you can share some details as to how this trial will unfold, and will the deposed leader also have some legal recourse in the procedure?
Well, from what it seems, obviously, it is going to be a sort of a farce, if it comes to the kind of action that has been taken, allegations that have been leveled. So, we are way past the, domestic legality of it. Now, the question is the international legality of the action that has been taken by the US. Obviously, there will be a short trial. They will try Maduro. They may also give some sort of some sort of legal representation to Maduro as well. However, it seems highly unlikely that Maduro is going to take it, because it is it is going to be a farce when it comes to the allegations are concerned, because they have already been set. The allegations are directly coming in from the United States president, where he has been calling Maduro a narco-terrorist, his group narco-terrorist, talking about the cartels that are flooding in the US with drugs. We have seen the recent action that were taken by the US military were also illegal when they shot and killed remaining survivors of alleged drug trafficking boat that they had struck. And while some people were already killed, the survivors had surrendered, but they still went ahead with killing the remaining survivors from that boat, which had become quite a controversy. And then Pete Hegseth had to, justify the action that was taken. Donald Trump had to talk about it, tweet about it rather. It's also, the allegations are already set. The mind is already made up. And if we go or rather think any other way, it's just disillusion that there is going to be any sort of justice in that court when Maduro is presented there. So, the action has been initiated by illegal action by the US forces. They went into a sovereign country, pick up a leader. It's not even be it a leader, be it a civilian. You go inside a country, take a sovereign of that country, bring that person to your country and try to now trial him. What if the Chinese military would have done same with Donald Trump on any kind of allegation that they would have leveled, or let's say Putin would have abducted Zelensky and then tried to try them in their court. So when it comes to this sort of hypocrisy that has been going on when it comes to the action that is usually taken by the Western countries, it's startling, and it has always been done, especially when it comes to the African nations or the global South countries, because when the action is taken by the West, it is always mighty and right. But when the same thing, applies to them, then all sort of laws and international rules and rule-based order comes into picture.
Right. Ambassador Sajjanar, if you could share some insights on the complexities involved when national and international laws collide. I mean, how do you try a sovereign of a leader of another country in a foreign land? I mean, it's not the first time that it's happening in the United States, but what are the complexities involved now that the world would be looking at the trial of Nicolas Maduro in a New York court?
Yeah, Shubhendu, I think that's a very important question. And as you said, it is not the first time it's happening. We had seen that, when the Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega and, from Grenada, from Nicaragua and others, they were apprehended and they were brought here. Again, some of them on similar drug-related charges. And this works according to the law of the United States. So here, the accuser is the United States, the judge and jury is United States, law is United States. So the decision, the verdict is quite well known. But as far as the international law is concerned, this is literally tearing the international law into smithereens and throwing it into the wind. But, as we've been discussing, it is again not the first time. This has always happened. There has been so many regimes that have been overturned, and particularly, what is mentioned, what has been stated, that the strong and the mighty will do what they can, and the weak and the impoverished suffer what they must. So this has been happening for a long time. And in this case also, there are, of course, going to be statements against this action by the United States. There will be meetings in the UN Security Council. Again, since United States is a veto-wielding member, there is going to be no decision that will be adopted, because that decision will be vetoed by the United States. In the General Assembly, discussions will take place, and there would be a significant majority, particularly of the Global South countries, which will be critical of what the United States has done. But still, there is going to be no action on that, because those decisions, those resolutions are not binding, those which are taken in the UN General Assembly. So it is the talks, discussions, deliberations will go on for a long time. But in terms of yielding any result that will place some sort of, impose some sort of a restraint on the United States, that is very unlikely. As far as the domestic laws are concerned, of course, there will be some criticism by the Democrats. Republicans will fall completely behind Mr. Trump as far as Democrats are concerned. But, no one can really go out there and say that, we oppose this, because then that will be painted by the Republicans as saying that the Democrats are in favor of drug peddling and narco-terrorists and drugs coming into our country, and as far as our youth are concerned, spoiling their lives and their future. So it will be very difficult even for the Democrats to take a very strong stand against this move by Mr. Trump.
And Ambassador, finally, how do you read the political road ahead for Venezuela? Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has taken charge. It's not an out-and-out overthrow of the leftist regime as one had speculated earlier. We don't see a role for Maria Corina Machado, for instance, immediately. But what do you see are the possibilities that lie ahead?
Yeah, so, there are three conflicting, points of action. Number one, what Mr. Trump has said yesterday, that the United States is going to take over, provide safety, security, peace, and judicious rule in that country. Now, we'll really have to wait and see as to how if it is serious about imposing its will, because it does appear it is serious, because it has its eyes on the oil reserves of Venezuela. So that is one area of action. Now, Corina Machado, she had said yesterday that the contender against Mr. Maduro in the 2024 presidential election, Eduardo Felipe Gonzalez, who's currently in Spain, that he should take over the presidency. And even, in fact, the United States had also rooted for him during the elections last year in 2024. But at that time, of course, it was Mr. Biden who was heading the US administration and not Mr. Trump. And Mr. Trump has different ideas. So that also doesn't, at least in the near immediate future, that will not be working out. And as far as Venezuela itself is concerned, as you said very rightly, the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has taken charge. But how effective that control is going to be is again a moot point, because the reports that are emanating out of Caracas and from other cities, and Venezuela is a large country, we have to recognize that, there have been protests and demonstrations both by supporters of Mr. Maduro and also celebrations by those who are opposed to him. So whether peace and security will be established by the current dispensation, by the leftist dispensation there is that prevails in Venezuela at the moment, that is again a very debatable point. So I think this will stay contentious in my view, Shubhendu, for some time, till some sort of a clarity comes to the situation as far as all these competing claims and pulls and pushes are concerned.
On that note, many thanks, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, for joining us on the News Hour, sharing your perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you indeed. Thank you.
And the United Nations Security Council is due to meet on Monday after US attacked Venezuela and deposed its long-serving autocratic president, Nicolas Maduro. The UN Security Council has met twice in October and December over the escalating tensions between United States and Venezuela last year. Venezuela's Supreme Court ordered that Vice President Delcy Rodriguez assumes the role of acting president of the country in absence of Nicolas Maduro, who was detained in an operation by US forces. The ruling added that the court will debate the matter in order to determine the applicable legal framework to guarantee the continuity of the state, the administration of the government, and the defense of sovereignty in the face of forced absence of President of the Republic. US President Donald Trump expressed doubt on Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, can run the country, saying she does not have respect of the country.
I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect.
And Venezuelans celebrated the ouster of President Nicolas Maduro with dancing and fireworks. Chants celebrating Maduro's capture were heard on the streets of capital cities in Latin America and in Spain, where Venezuelans gathered to share their joy. Meanwhile, dozens of Venezuelan and Mexican demonstrators gathered outside American and Venezuelan embassies in Mexico City. Pro-Maduro supporters waved Venezuelan flags and chanted slogans rejecting what they called US interventionism, with California residents Margaret stating that Trump was trying to distract from domestic problems by killing innocent people. We're heading for a short break. There's more coming up.
From monsoons to winters, seasons have now become unpredictable. So today, let's meet people who, despite the challenges of change, are working towards a better future.
I started working in waste management and focused on reducing polythene use to protect the environment.
Within 6 months, all the other plants turned into manure, but this one plant was still blooming. So that was a big motivation for me to start Only Adenium.
If we can continue this initiative, we hope by 2050 to see a green belt along the entire coastline.
When you're surrounded by asphalt, concrete, glass, and these run-of-the-mill buildings that are becoming more and more alike, then of course people will want to create a more natural, more livable niche here and there.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Britain's and France air forces conducted a joint operation on Saturday evening to bomb a suspected underground arms cache previously used by Islamic State group in Syria. British Defence Secretary John Healey described the strike on Saturday as part of ongoing efforts to prevent Daesh from rebuilding its capabilities and spreading what he called its dangerous and violent ideologies. Western aircraft have been conducting patrols to stop resurgence of the Islamist militant group that ruled parts of Syria until 2019. Britain said intelligence analysis identified an underground facility believed to be used to store weapons and explosives in mountains north of Palmyra. Britain said the area was devoid of any civilian habitation, before the attack and that all its aircraft had returned safely. Britain said it used Typhoon FGR-4 combat jets to bomb the target, supported by Voyager refueling tanker. North Korea has fired a ballistic missile towards the sea off its east coast, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a statement on Sunday. According to Japan's Ministry of Defense, the missile is believed to have already fallen. The last time Pyongyang tested its ballistic missile was in November. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for more than double the production capacity of tactical guided weapons on his latest visit to a munitions factory. The first launch of North Korea's ballistic missiles in 2 months comes as South Korean President Lee Jae-myung left China on Sunday for state visit, where Seoul has said peace on the Korean peninsula would be discussed. In recent weeks, Kim has made a series of visits to factories that build weapons as well as nuclear-powered submarine and has overseen missile tests ahead of next year's 9th Party Congress of the Workers' Party convened to set out major policy goals. In the latest update in Ukraine-Russia conflict, security advisors from Ukraine's top allies met in Kiev on Saturday for talks on US-brokered plan to end the conflict with Russia, days after Kiev announced the deal was 90% ready. Officials from 15 countries, including Britain, France, Germany, as well as representatives from NATO and European Union, joined the meeting, with the US delegation, Steve Witkoff, joining via video link. Speaking at a press conference on Saturday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that if diplomacy to end the conflict failed, his country would continue to defend itself.
We want to end the war. You can see the diplomacy today. We are pursuing it. Understand that we are very close to a result, but at some point, if Russia blocks all of this, and as I said, it depends on our partners. If our partners do not compel Russia to stop the war, there will be another path to defend ourselves. And at that moment, fresh forces will be needed. That is why I will proceed with a parallel reboot of all structures, just in case.
And following the meeting, President Zelensky said security guarantees and reconstruction will be central to talks in Europe as Ukrainian and allied military representatives prepare to meet in Paris.
During these meetings, there will be meetings with President Trump's team. These meetings will also take place in Paris. They'll last a day or maybe 2 days. We'll see how it goes.
In other news, Myanmar's junta has said it would release more than 6,000 prisoners as part of an annual amnesty to mark the country's Independence Day. The acting president of the Union of Republic of Myanmar has pardoned 6,134 prisoners who are serving their terms at respective prisons, detention centers and camps. 52 foreign prisoners were also to be released and deported, it said in a statement. The military has arrested thousands of protesters and activists since its February 2021 coup that ended Myanmar's brief democratic experiment. The yearly prisoner amnesty on humanitarian and compassionate grounds, according to the National Security Council, comes as the country marks 78 years of independence from British colonial rule. Leaders of the Bangladesh Hindu-Buddhist Christian Unity Council met BNP acting chairman Tariq Rahman at the party's Gulshan office in Dhaka on Saturday to express condolences over the death of former Prime Minister and BNP chairperson Begum Khaleda Zia. During the meeting, minority leaders described Khaleda Zia as a strong and uncompromising leader who played an important role in country's democratic movement. They said her death was a great loss for Bangladesh and conveyed their sympathies to Tariq Rahman and his family. The leaders also discussed growing concerns over recent incidents of violence against minority communities in different parts of the country. They presented Tariq Rahman with details of these incidents and submitted an 8-point list of demands urging the BNP to include them as commitments in its election manifesto. Underscoring the growing emphasis on strengthening sports infrastructure and promoting athletic development, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the 72nd National Volleyball Tournament today. via video conferencing. The inaugural ceremony will be held at Dr. Sampurnanand Sports Stadium, Varanasi. The tournament, being held from 4th to 11th January, will witness participation from across India, with over 1,000 players competing as part of 58 teams representing various states and institutions. The tournament is expected to showcase high standards of competition, sportsmanship and talent in Indian volleyball. The tournament will further enhance city's profile as a hub for major national events, aligning with its expanding role in hosting significant cultural and sporting initiatives. Flag officer commanding Gujarat Naval Area interacted with the crew of INS SV Kondenia during an airborne engagement from Dornier aircraft, with the vessel riding the waves of the North Arabian Sea. The crew could be seen waving with an emphatic message of grit and resolve, blending navigation, traditional seamanship and contemporary naval professionalism. The Fagna radioed the crew that Kondenia looked beautiful from the air and conveyed best wishes for safe and successful passage ahead. Battling sub-zero temperatures, high winds and relentless snowfall aligned with the Indian Army's operational requirements, BRO teams under the projects Vijayak and Beacon and Himang are carrying out sustained snow clearance operation at Zojila and other critical high-altitude passes linking Ladakh and Kashmir. BRO teams continue efforts to restore and maintain essential connectivity, supporting uninterrupted movement and operational preparedness. In the Ladakh and Kashmir, Zojila is often buried under meters of snow during winters. Machineries are being deployed in extreme conditions to ensure the route remains operational despite frequent avalanches and freezing temperatures. 16-year-old Vishwanath Karthikeya Padakanti has done what few can dream of, conquering 7 summits from Everest to Elbrus. Grit and glory define this young mountaineer, now honoured with Rashtriya Bal Puraskar. A look at the lad's journey so far.
No mountain is high enough for the 16-year-old Vishwanath Karthikeya Padakanti. He is now the youngest Indian to have completed the 7 Summits Challenge. Vishwanath is also the second youngest globally to achieve this feat. No wonder that he was accorded the Rashtriya Bal Puraskar on 26 December in New Delhi by the President of India, Draupadi Murmu.
చాలా హ్యాపీ అనిపించింది ఎప్పుడైతే కార్తీక్కి ఈ అవార్డు వచ్చిందని మాకు మెయిల్ రాగానే చాలా హ్యాపీ అనిపించింది.
The Class 10 students' list of 7 summits conquests includes peaks across all 7 continents. The Mount Everest was Vishwanath's final frontier in the 7 Summits Challenge. Training, discipline, grit and passion all came together when the youngster from Telangana put his best foot forward to scale Mount Everest in May 2025.
Over there, it was my lengthiest climb till now. It was around 50 days and I didn't have water for last 5 days during the ascent.
Vishwanath holds 4 world records, including that for climbing Europe's highest peak, Mount Elbrus in southern Russia. He climbed it from the east and west sides in a span of 24 hours and wanted to do it in the name of India.
I completed the Mount Elbrus in 24 hours from east and west side. I'm the youngest to do that. So I got the discipline, like I just wanted to do it because I had strength and nobody from India did it at that time.
That fascination continues. Vishwanath hopes to scale tougher terrains and higher mountains sooner or later. Mountains being his passion, Vishwanath works with an NGO to raise awareness about adventure sports and the need to protect the environment.
Time for a short break here. There's more coming up on DD India News Hour.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Saudi Arabia's finance minister has approved the kingdom's 2025 borrowing plan with financing needs of about $57.86 billion as the Gulf country pushes ahead with its economic diversification plans. The amount is intended to cover a projected budget deficit for the 2026 fiscal year of around $44 billion, as well as repayment of principal due in 2026 amounting to about $13.8 billion. The world's top oil exporter is more than halfway through its Vision 2030 plan that calls for hundreds of billions of dollars in government investment to cut its economic dependence on hydrocarbon revenue. The domestic debt market is expected to contribute 20 to 30% of total borrowing of 2026, with the international debt market contributing between 25% and 30%. Watching DD India News Hour, time for all the action from sports. England's innings is unfolding under pressure at Sydney Cricket Ground in this final Ashes test. After winning the toss and batting first, England slipped to 57 for 3 inside 13 overs. Ben Duckett looked fluent for his 27 before edging to carry off Stark. Zach Crawley managed 16 but was trapped LBW by Nasser. And debutant Jacob Bethel fell for 10 against Boland. Now Joe Root and Harry Brook have steadied the ship with a fluent partnership, taking England to 211 after 45 overs, with Joe Root unbeaten on 72 and Harry Brook on 78. Their partnership has put England firmly back in control after early wickets, though play is currently delayed due to bad light. Barcelona left it late but sealed a thrilling 2-0 win over Espanyol in the Catalan derby. Dani Olmo broke the deadlock in the 86th minute with a superb strike after Fermin Lopez's clear pass. Lopez then turned provider again, racing down the right to set up Robert Lewandowski for second goal in stoppage time. Goalkeeper João Garcia stood tall with a string of brilliant saves that kept Espanyol and gave Barca the platform for victory. The win pushes Barcelona to 49 points, 7 clear of Real Madrid, while Espanyol stays 5th on 33. Switzerland's historic city of Basel was in the spotlight as it hosted the Basel Christmas Chess Festival. A 5-day tournament drew players from across the continents and generations and has witnessed strong performances by Indian players in recent years. From Basel, our Swiss correspondent Nidhi has more.
Basel is a globally recognized powerhouse in the life sciences and pharmaceutical sector, and its unique location at the intersection of 3 countries, Switzerland, France and Germany, makes it a cultural melting pot. But today, the chemistry in the air is purely intellectual. The battle of minds is underway at the Basel Christmas Chess Festival. Basel has a rich chess tradition, and until recently, grandmasters from Switzerland, Russia and Azerbaijan were dominating the 64 squares. But now, the tide has turned. In 2019, international master CRG Krishna won in the master category. This was followed by another success in 2023 by Grandmaster Vignesh NR. Last year, Balaguru Vinod Kumar won in the expert category, signaling India's growing dominance in the European Open circuit.
There is no age bar at this tournament. The youngest competitor is just 8 years old, while the oldest is 78. This year, the Basel Christmas Chess Festival brings together players from 28 nationalities, underlining its truly global appeal.
Es gibt einige Zugverspätungen aus Frankreich. Mehrere Spieler haben uns geschrieben.
Hi, welcome to Basel, Xmas Festival. So this festival is a festival that has quite a long tradition now. This is the 26th time the festival is happening, and the tournament is growing over the years. More and more players are coming, higher rated players are coming, and this tournament is one of the only 2 tournaments in Switzerland where you can achieve title norms. So the players who want to become grandmasters, international masters, women grandmasters, and women international masters, they will have to score a certain amount of points and play certain opponents which already have the title they want, and then they get their norms here.
In the expert category, Jonas Hecht from Germany clinched the first prize, while Indian-born Shivesh Mali finished 4th.
First of all, I'm proud to play for Switzerland, since I'm living here more or less since I was born. Training here in Switzerland you can train very, you can train a lot, but I think in India it's completely different. I feel like the players here are mostly, compared to Indian players, a bit overrated if you see the FIDE point of view, because there are many players who come from India and play tournaments in Switzerland, and they have less rating points, but they perform at a much higher level, and that just shows that chess is taken even more seriously there in India than here in Switzerland.
Of course, everybody knows Kukesh, he's the current world champ and he's a very great player. And I think from watching him play, especially in the World Championship, I learned a lot about how you have to prepare your games, especially in tournaments where you have a lot of time to prepare for your opponent.
India was proudly represented by the young duo Rindhya V and Kirti Sri Reddy. Both girls hold the title of Women FIDE Master and regularly compete in international tournaments. Rindhya won the All India Inter-University Chess Tournament in August. Kirti competed in Spain, Belgium, Latvia and Serbia. She was part of the winning team at the 2025 World Schools Team Championship in Virginia. In Basel, she was tied with Maria Manko from Switzerland for the Best Woman title and added a whopping 80 points to her rating.
I studied in Velamal, the group Velamal Nexus is a very big group in Chennai. And many grandmasters have came from that school, and they provide leave, and also I mostly focus on chess. And during my board exam, only three to 4 months I'll study, and even though academics also we can able to manage. So super grateful for Vela. I like Vaishali and Divya Deshmukh. Both are very attacking and player, and they are inspiring the young generation in India. When I started playing chess, it was not so famous as now. Now everybody is taking up the chess, but when I was starting, it was how will chess look and how it is they will ask so many questions, but now everywhere someone is achieving something, and in India it's very great.
With the 2025 chess season coming to a close here in Basel, Switzerland, one thing is very clear. With players like Kirti Sri Reddy traveling across the globe to sharpen their game, the future of Indian chess is in very capable hands. This is Nidhi reporting from Basel for DD India.
Today is World Braille Day. The day is dedicated to millions of visually impaired people for whom Braille is a medium of education, independence and dignity. Braille is not just a method of reading and writing, it's a bridge to a world of knowledge and opportunity.
Braille is more than just a script. It is a bridge between darkness and knowledge. Based on 6 raised dots and read through touch, Braille was invented by Franz Louis Braille, whose birth anniversary is observed as World Braille Day.
लुई ब्रेल ने ब्रेल बना के बहुत ज़्यादा योगदान दिया, एक बहुत बड़ा योगदान दिया है, क्योंकि जब टेक्नोलॉजी थी ही नहीं, हम टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में सोचते भी नहीं थे, उस टाइम पे उन्होंने ब्रेल का आविष्कार किया और इससे जो विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड लोग थे उन्हें पढ़ने लिखने में सुविधा हुई.
In India, for millions of visually impaired people, Braille continues to be a lifeline to education and learning. Each raised dot carries not just letters but hopes, dreams and independence.
मेरी सारी पढ़ाई में मतलब जितना भी वर्क है सब मैं ब्रेल में करती हूँ। और रीडिंग तो मतलब मुझे ब्रेल बुक्स रीड करने का बहुत ज़्यादा शौक है, तो मुझे बुक्स भी रीड करना बहुत पसंद है। सरकार को भी यह ज्ञात होने लगा है कि एक दृष्टिहीन बच्चा भी पढ़ सकता है, और इस चीज़ को देखते हुए सरकार ने बहुत सारे कार्यक्रम आयोजन किए, जैसे विद्यालय में स्पेशल बच्चों के लिए ब्रेल बुक प्रोवाइड करवाना, ब्रेल, स्टाइलर, शीट, स्टिक जिसे हम केन भी कहते हैं, ये सभी चीज़ें अब धीरे धीरे वो प्रोवाइड करवा रही है।
Today, Braille goes beyond the pages of books. From chessboard to Ludo games, raised markings allow visually impaired players to compete with confidence and equality.
From the Act, the RPD Act, blind people have got a lot of, you can say, privileges and benefits, like reservation in education, scholarships, and reservation in jobs as well. And then government has also kind of created many programs to help the person with disabilities, including the blind. For example, they have set up many Braille presses all over the country and also modernized them. At this time, they are also running a project to kind of make more and more books accessible to the blind as well.
In everyday life, Braille quietly empowers independence. From elevator buttons with raised symbols to magnifiers and large print text for low vision, accessibility opens door to self-reliance. And standing beside them at every step is a white cane, a symbol of strength and mobility, guiding visually impaired people towards a safer and more confident future.
World Braille Day reminds us that to create an inclusive society, we need accessible education and truly inclusive environment. This is Manisha Sharma with me, my colleague Dipali, and camera person Sunny Kalra from DD India, Delhi.
And that brings us to the close of this edition of DD India News Hour. Namaskar.